Welcome to BL Business Branding. I'm your host, Nick Martinez, and here with my colleague, Isabel Wadsworth. Today we're going to be talking about this ongoing lawsuit between the Chicago Cubs and the Wrigley Rooftop bar that it's a really interesting subject where we're going to first go through kind of the background, the business relationship between these entities, talk about our thoughts about the claims and the allegations for damages, and then what this could kind of mean for not only these individual parties, but kind of sports in general.
Yes. So Chicago, as we all know, is not only known for its deep dish pizza, which is delicious, but it's also a big sports town. And so we're going to talk about the intersection of, the Cubs and this legal battle that's going on between the Cubs and Wrigley View Rooftop. And like I said, it's more than deep dish pizza and baseball here. Like, it's a story about branding. It's a story about, businesses in the community and sort of who really owns the experience of watching a game. So we're going to dive straight in.
Certainly. And so I think for the baseball fans out there, there's no park more iconic than Wrigley.
Absolutely.
Wrigley's been there for over 100 years now, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've
historic.
only had lights for 60 of those. But the whole neighborhood there around Wrigley is called Wrigleyville for a reason, right? This whole area looks to the stadium. And, obviously it's the home of the Chicago Cubs. Great and historic franchise.
Yes.
But then what's really interesting is around the stadium, there's all these rooftops that have stadium-style seating where you can go and watch the games. You can watch the concerts. You can do whatever's going on in the stadium, you can see. And that's kind of, Wrigley's not a domed stadium. They don't have high walls. You can see right on in.
Right.
And so for this lawsuit, there was, a 20-year business relationship?
Yeah, so for about 20 years, this guy ran a business called Wrigley View Rooftop. And so he still runs, this business today. This business it exists and is operative. So basically, it's a rooftop across the street from Wrigley Field, hence the name, where people can buy tickets to watch Cub games and, as you mentioned, anything really else going on in Wrigley, from high up with food, drinks, pretty much the whole deal. And this gentleman had a license from the Cubs that sort of made this relationship official for a period of time. He could sell tickets and use Cubs branding in his promos. So he could sell tickets for his stadium-style seating and then also sort of use Cubs branding to sort of help his business. But now that license has expired, and the Cubs are saying that he is still out here selling rooftop tickets like nothing happened. And in their view, this gentleman is still holding his business out to be an official Cubs partner. So the Cubs are suing. And that's sort of why this lawsuit is so interesting, because it goes back to, can the Cubs say that they own the sounds, the sights, and the smells of their baseball game, that sort of drift into the neighborhood, drift into property that they don't own? It's a really interesting issue.
Certainly, and this is kind of almost if the Cubs weren't a good team, if people didn't enjoy watching baseball, this would almost be an entirely reverse lawsuit of that Wrigley Field is trespassing, that their sound is creating a nuisance, things like that. But here, since it is a valuable product that people want to come and see, it's kind of, it's a bit different than the normal property disputes you will see. Right.
It's an interesting it's like a quasi-property, like physical property and IP dispute. So the Cubs' main complaint is sort of twofold, and we've kind of touched on this, but to really hone it in, first, they say that, this business is selling tickets to watch games from their rooftop, even though this agreement has lapsed, which I mentioned. And second, and I think this is the big one and it's also the most interesting, is the Cubs are saying that this rooftop is falsely advertising their business as officially connected to the Cubs, which in their arguments is misleading fans and messes with their brand, messes with the Cubs brand. And that's, classic consumer confusion argument. So the second point is where they might have, the stronger case, the Cubs. If you're not officially, partnered with a team anymore, you can't act like you are, sort of is their argument, which kind of makes sense, right? But there's more to the story. So
Certainly.
it makes the case really interesting.
And one of I think the most interesting things about this case is that there are the other rooftop bars
Right. So
next
many.
door that are
Yes.
doing the exact same thing. And, this is just my speculation, but that's probably why the Cubs are suing, is they
Right.
want to be able to maintain those licensing agreements with those other bars.
Right.
And that's one of the key things of a licensing agreement, is making sure you enforce against potential infringers.
Right.
Because otherwise, I mean, there's kind of two ways of looking at it. One, if everyone's a licensee, no one is.
Right.
And two, if you don't need the license, why am I paying for it?
Such a good point. Such a good point. And I think that, the risky part in terms of, the Rooftops case is that using a team's name, logo, or sort of holding out or saying that you're an official partner when you're not, that's where this can get risky, especially, in the context of the licensing arrangements that you just mentioned. So that they may have crossed a line, but I think the court is going to, hash this out. The court's going to come to a decision, and because this, as of June 2025, when we're filming this, the case is still rolling along. So there is a pending lawsuit, and it's going to be up to the court. And what happens next is going to be really interesting, because this could set a big precedent.
Certainly could, and I know that's we're based out of the Washington, D.C. area, and I know we go to Nationals games,
Yes.
and ballparks throughout the country will have
Right.
nearby businesses, hotels,
Right.
apartments that you can see the on-field product from
Right.
those outside stadium
Right.
venues.
Right. It's so true. If the Cubs win this lawsuit, it might mean that other teams, like you mentioned, could sort of tighten their control over what happens around their stadiums, even if it's off their property. And that's going to be really interesting to see unfold. And it's more than just the tickets, right? It's about how much control a sports team can have on the live experience of watching a game and over its surroundings. So, yeah, this one's going to be really interesting to follow. We'll definitely be keeping our eyes on this one. As a sports fan, it's really cool to see these disputes kind of roll out in the courts, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, this is a big clash in the worlds of sports and entertainment and how they interact with the law. So we'll definitely be keeping our eyes on this and provide any updates.